So this has been a amazing week for me personally, but not such a great week for the channel. And the main reason I've been super busy, just welcomed my second child, and this means that I'm getting a lot less sleep and I have a lot less time to review stuff. But I did manage to catch the season finale of Lovecraft Country. Now, they kind of advertise this as the series finale because they've said that this was a limited series, but come on, we all know that they would like to do a second season. Misha Green said as much in a recent interview, and that she even has ideas ready for a second season. And I think this is just the new trend where HBO advertises everything as a limited series. So if they don't make a second season, they never canceled anything. They just didn't expand upon a limited series. But it's really just semantics. But as a season finale, I think that this was imperfect, but very, very satisfying as a piece of entertainment. I think that the best moments in this episode were, for me, the build-up to Tick's death. I particularly liked the scene where he was in the store watching his family moving about, preparing for this final confrontation with Christina, and the music's playing. And kudos to Jonathan Majors. I think that he has had a lot of repetitive emotional beats for this character to play, but he finds a way as an actor to make them feel fresh and new, and like he's not replaying the same material. And that scene, his scene with Letty at the church, where a lot of the dialogue to me was kind of nice sounding but meaningless, but the way that Jurnee Smollett and Jonathan Majors played it made it seem very emotional and rich. And the scene with all of the members of the group riding in the car and singing the song together as they headed towards the Braithwaite mansion, those scenes to me were the strongest in the episode, and they really set the tone for what was to come. They really allowed you to think that Tick might really be heading to his death. And I think that a lot of shows and movies miss the opportunity to do these types of scenes, because I think to me they add so much to the final impact. And this show has felt rushed at times, but I'm glad that they took the time to set up Tick's sacrifice right. Now, I don't necessarily think that Tick is going to stay dead. I certainly think if they make a second season, it's going to be hard for them to not want to bring him back. But to me, personally, I think that would be a mistake, because I think that so much of this episode was Tick accepting that he was going to, as his mother said in her speech to him, lay down his life on the altar for something that he believed was important. And to have him not actually stay dead, I think will kind of take away from his sacrifice. Even though I think it's very sad to see him go, I think there's a lot of interesting characters in this show, and I think that they could go on without him. Now, I doubt that they will, but I kind of wish that they would. I also don't think Ruby is very likely to stay dead. If there is doubt, then there is no doubt, and they didn't actually show her die unless you count the brief flashbacks when Gia was going through Christina's memories. But I don't think she's dead either, and to me, I think that they could bring her back justifiably, and it wouldn't be as much of a cop-out. Now, they've made it very, very clear that death doesn't have to be permanent on this show. We had Letty obviously get resurrected in this episode, but that was very much set up in the story. They explained how the magic works. They had the scene where Christina outlined that you have to have the intent, that you have to have the sacrifice, and you have to have the location. I think there might have been some other elements, but those were the ones I can remember. And that in this scene, Atticus was using the magic to save Letty's life as he bled out and died. And that was just a very powerful moment. And Letty's death, to me, and resurrection feels justified because it was something that came with a cost. Now, I liked the twist that Christina was in Ruby's body and that she had caught Ruby trying to steal the blood sample to give to Letty. I liked that twist. It gave me chills when it was revealed. I feel like it might have been better if they had let the audience in on what was going on sooner. I think that having it become obvious to the audience just a moment before Letty realized it kind of makes it less interesting, because I think it would have been interesting to see the characters not knowing what's going on while the audience knows that it's Christina. I think that would have been very, very suspenseful, and it would have been interesting because you weren't really watching Ruby during these scenes thinking, oh, it's Christina. I think it would have been interesting to go back and have some scenes where you realized what was going on. And kudos to the performances here. I could tell immediately that it was Christina when she said the line, I finally see what is important about family, because that's something Ruby would never say, but also the way that the actress said it, you could just tell that it was Christina. She said it the same way that Christina has that odd cadence to her speech, was replicated very, very well. The final battle taking down Christina, it wasn't as epic as I was hoping, but I think it worked from a dramatic standpoint. Obviously the focus was on Tick's sacrifice. I think that they should have had Letty be the one to kill Christina, because Letty has the most reason to want Christina dead, and she's been the one who's kind of been framed as her opposition throughout this series. But having Diana do it, to me, I don't like that they had a young child be the one to kill Christina, for one thing. I get that she's seen a lot worse things in the last couple weeks, but I just feel like no one would want this for her. Hippolyta would certainly not want it for her, and Atticus would certainly not want it for her. So it's tough. I get that this is, perhaps someone could argue, true to life, but I feel like it wasn't the most obvious solution, and I didn't like the way they kind of framed the scene as kind of like a Marvel post-credits tease. It was played as something cool, whereas it was actually kind of disturbing the more you think about it. I also felt that the fact that they decided that no more would white people be allowed to use magic, that only black people would be allowed to use magic from now on. To me, this seems about as just as saying that white people can no longer own restaurants because some white people wouldn't let black people eat in restaurants. I mean, I think that there's potential for Misha Green to explore this in some depth. I think that, this show has moved at a very fast clip, and sometimes the themes that she's exploring get short shrift. She talked about in a Twitter post how Yahima's death earlier in this season didn't get delved into enough, and how she was trying to explore how oppressed people can sometimes become oppressors themselves. And I think that's a very complex theme, something very deep and well worth exploring. And it's possible that Misha Green is looking to explore this in a second season, to explore how perhaps in, obstructing an entire group of people from using magic, that the black characters are becoming just like the people that oppress them. And if that's what she's going, then I give her kudos for that. But as it was in this episode, I felt like it seemed a little bit unjust. So those are just my thoughts for what they're worth. If you're interested in seeing more reviews like this one, please consider subscribing.